Hey everybody, Sean Sewell with Engearment.com. Welcome to Engearment.com podcast. Super excited to have my friend Jim Lamacusa from Cusa Tea on the show. He's got a local tea and now coffee company. We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Backcountry skiing, fitness, small business, and the chaos of business right now. So Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sean. Can't wait to chat with you more about it. And I really appreciate you taking some time. You were one of the first supporters of Cusa Tea and put us on the map, really, with retailers and consumers knowing about us. And now that we're launching Cusa Coffee, it's a great opportunity to chat some more.
Oh, I love it. I'm drinking the coffee right now. It's so good. I was joking with Jim before we started recording. This is my fourth or fifth cup of your coffee.
So this interview is going to go fast.
So amped. No, it's great. Like I have all the teas, a nice variety of your teas. I always have them in my truck and in my backpack. And then you send over the little care package with the coffees that you have a Kickstarter for right now. And that's very well funded. You're kicking butt, man. It's awesome.
It's going well.
I'm glad to hear that. We'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. Well, Jim, let's talk a little bit about you. You've got a lot of background in outdoor retail stuff and business. What brought you into the tea world?
Yeah. So, I'd actually have to take it back to my college days. So I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder and studied business, and I wanted to study abroad. I've always wanted to travel and work and live abroad. And so I looked at the programs that they had at University of Colorado for business school, and basically Hong Kong was an option. And I've always been drawn to Asia. And so long story short is I ended up going to Hong Kong to study abroad. And so I studied international business there. And as part of the program, the first 3 weeks, they took us through mainland China to kind of introduce the culture. And one of the things that they did is they took us to a tea shop. And tea shops in Asia are completely different than anything you've ever seen in America. Like you walk in and there are, I'm going to say 1,000 different tins lining the walls. And you sit down at this table, and it's these carved wooden tables, and they have a water jug underneath it or water bucket. And so they'll make you the tea right there, and they'll pour it and the water will flow through, and they clean the cups before they serve it to you. And so all the water runs into the bucket underneath, but it's this beautiful experience. And so they start and they say, what kind of tea do you like? And I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up with my mom drinking Lipton tea, and I tried it a few times and it tasted bitter and awful.
Yeah.
So I never really was much of a tea drinker. And so I told them I have no idea what kind of tea that I like. And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to give you black tea, green tea, oolong tea. And so I tasted those three and I said, I really like them all, but let's try some more green teas. And so then they gave me a Darjeeling green tea. They gave me a jasmine green tea. And so they whittled it down into 5 or 6 different types of green tea. And then I said, I like this one the best. And then they would give you more options. So it's you keep going further and further down the rabbit hole. But by the end of that hour that we spent there, I walked away with $300 worth of loose leaf tea, which is a lot of loose leaf tea when you're buying in Asia. And that experience really turned me into a tea drinker. And that was in college. So I studied international business there for a semester. And then once I graduated, my wife and I met in school and we got married right out of college. And then we both wanted to go back to Asia. And so we moved and we taught English in Thailand for a year. And then my wife had studied abroad in Nepal. And so we wanted to go. I've never been in Nepal, and I wanted to go back, and she wanted to show me it. So we went to Nepal, and we ended up just falling in love with the culture, and we learned to meditate, and we went mountaineering. And so I did a bunch of mountains over 20,000 feet, hiking and skiing, and the Himalayas are like nothing else in the world. And so we ended up spending in total 2.5 years living in Asia. And Asia is so much more of a tea drinking culture than they are for coffee. And so that whole time I was just drinking tea. And so when I came back to America, and eventually we ran out of money and had to come back and get real jobs. Yeah. And so, I started drinking coffee again when my first real job, and I started developing acid reflux. And so I ended up narrowing it down to coffee was one of the things that can do it. And so it wasn't a hard choice for me to just start drinking tea again. But I remember being that guy in the office, everybody else is drinking coffee and I had my tea bags, but it's fine. Now it's becoming a lot more accepted, and it's one of the fastest growing beverages in America. So, for the last 15 years, I've been involved in the outdoor industry with Dynafit and Salewa. I've been involved with the grocery industry with Good Belly, which is a probiotic juice drink. I was in the food service industry with Eco Products, which makes the compostable and biodegradable food service packaging like plates and cups. And so it was back in 2015 that I worked for a small water bottle company here in Boulder. It ended up going out of business and I got laid off. But during that time, I realized, I've worked for some fast growing startups here in Colorado, and I've always wanted to have my own business. But I've seen enough that if you don't have an innovative idea in an emerging category, it's going to be really hard to succeed. And so the idea for Kusa Tea came when I was on a backpacking trip, and all my buddies were carrying Starbucks via instant coffee packets, and I was carrying around wet, soggy tea bags. And you can't just chuck those into the woods. You have to pack them out. It's like the only thing on a backpacking trip that's heavier hiking out than when you go in.
Yeah.
And so I would put them in this Ziploc bag and carry them out. And one day I didn't seal the Ziploc bag completely. And by the time I got to camp that night, all of my clothes were covered in wet tea juice. And I was cold, and I was like, this light bulb moment though, of like, why hasn't anybody made the Starbucks Via but for tea?
Yeah.
And so I went back and I did some research, and I saw that, there is instant tea out there, like Lipton and Nestea have it. But when you read the ingredients, it's nothing that I'd want to put in my body.
Right.
It's like the first ingredient is sugar, and then some sort of a flavoring, and then an additive, and then a preservative, and maltodextrin, and it's just stuff you can't even pronounce. So anyway, so I said, I don't want to make a tea company that has anything other than just tea, or tea and fruit, or tea and spices. And so that kicked me off like a year and a half of R&D process. And to make a long story short, there's basically two methods that existed before what we do to dehydrate beverages. And so the first method is called spray drying, and that's high heat dehydration. So you take, and this is applicable to coffee as well. So with spray drying, you either boil the coffee or the tea. Once it's boiled, then they strain out the tea leaves and the coffee, and then they move it into a machine that's 1,000-degree air fan. So it's 1,000-degree heat that gets, and then the tea and coffee get sprayed into that air fan. And so that high pressure and high temperature evaporate the water. But the problem is that with tea or coffee or pretty much any beverage, if you put it through 1,000 degrees, it's going to change the flavor. And so that's why a lot of instant coffees taste burned. And same thing with tea, like Lipton and Nestea, they use spray drying for their tea. And then they have to add in sugar and flavorings because otherwise it's like unpalatable.
That makes sense.
And then the other process is freeze drying, which people are probably more familiar with. And that's really cold temperature dehydration. It's like negative 212 degrees. It does give a better result than spray drying, but the problem is that with that cold temperature, it still degrades the flavor. And so like there's never been an instant tea or instant coffee that tastes like a fresh cup. And so I tried both of those methods. They both failed. I was thinking that maybe if we use different quality tea, like a little bit higher quality or something, we could make it work. And ultimately it didn't. And I had spent $75,000 of my wife and my savings to try to make this work. Yep. And like ultimately after this was like 9 months in, I told my wife, you know what, honey, I'm not going to launch the company. I'm going to go back and get a real job again. I just don't want to launch a brand that's not going to work. Right. And so I was brushing my teeth one night and I was bored, and I read the back of her eye cream, and every night she puts on this rose eye cream and it smells like rose petals, and the back of the box, it said rose extract. And so I started wondering, how are they getting rose petals into an eye cream? And when I researched this botanical extraction process, it got me super excited because they don't use high heat or freeze drying either. They use, well, I'll get a little bit more into the process in a second, but so I reached out to some botanical extraction companies and said, hey, would you be open to partnering with me to try to make an instant tea product? And one of them was really excited about it. And so long story short, we worked in tandem together over the course of 2 months to modify their process, this botanical process, to use for a food purpose. And so what we end up doing, there's basically 2 main steps. So this works same with both tea and coffee. It's the same process. And so first we have to brew it without using heat, because if you use heat, it's like if you make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and you leave it sitting and the water gets cold, when you taste it, it tastes really bitter because the tannins come out. So we cold brew the coffee and tea. So we take real coffee, real tea, organic tea leaves, Rainforest Alliance certified coffee. We do have some fruit flavors like the lemon coffee, and we've got mango green tea. So we use real fruit, no flavorings at all. So we put all of that into room temperature water. And then one of the secrets is that we pressurize the water. So this piston comes down and pressurizes it to 500 PSI.
Wow.
And then we leave it for 6 hours. And so that pressure encourages the tea leaves or the coffee to steep into room temperature water. And then giving it 6 hours is similar to cold brew, where you leave something in your fridge for 24 hours. But with that pressure, we can speed up the process. So at the end of that 6 hours, we release the pressure, we strain out the used coffee and tea, we compost it and use it as fertilizer in the organic tea farms. So I think we're the only tea company in the world that can claim that their leaves go right back into the soil.
That's so cool.
And then we've got just liquid coffee or tea left. That moves into a machine. It's called a vacuum dehydrator, but what's happening inside is evaporative dehydration. So you live in Colorado, you know how fast things dry here because our humidity is so low. So inside this machine, we fill, it looks like a mini submarine, and you can see pictures of it on our website, but we fill this machine up halfway with tea or coffee, and then we put 0% humidity air above it. And so it creates a pressure differential. So the water that's in the tea or the coffee, it rapidly evaporates into the air above it. Once it hits 40% inside the machine, we vent it out and put 0% back in and let it run. And it takes about 6 cycles for the tea or coffee to lose all of its water, but that's all it's losing. The flavor, the aroma, the caffeine, the active antioxidants, none of that evaporates. Wow. It's really only the water that's evaporating. So at the end, you're left with these tea or coffee crystals, and they're starving for moisture because we just took it all out. So the moment you add it back to hot or cold water, it just dissolves. Like if you put the crystals in your cup first and pour water on it, you don't even have to stir.
Yeah.
You put it in a water bottle and shake it up. So it's super convenient. So I launched with tea 3 years ago, and it's been a wild ride ever since then. We got, luckily because of my days at Dynafit, we were able to get into REI really quickly. And so we've been in REI since the beginning nationwide. We got into King Soopers, an awesome local grocery store chain, and they have a locals, like an end cap in the store just for local brands. And so we've been there ever since. And then we did so well, we were the best selling item. So they moved us into the tea section too. So now we're in like 2,500 grocery stores nationwide. E-commerce has been an amazing part of the business, and it's continued to grow. And honestly, right now it's what's keeping us alive, because even though grocery stores are selling more than they ever have during the coronavirus, their tea is not considered an essential food good. Yeah. And so they're not restocking our products. So we used to get 30 or 40 purchase orders a month from grocery stores, and in March we got 0. In April so far, we've gotten 0. So it's really been the online consumers that have kept us going. So yeah, it's been kind of wild times, but it's been fun. I'm super excited about the coffee products, because even though the tea we've won 4 medals from the Global Tea Championship, and that's a fun little process.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Thank you. Have you ever seen the movie Bottle Shock?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, so it was probably 15 years ago, but it's a comedy about when a California winery won it back in the 70s. They won a French wine tasting championship, and it was a blind taste test. And so the movie is hilarious, but basically at the end of the movie, these judges learn that they just awarded a California wine as the best and beating out the French. So again, a super funny movie, but that's basically what happened to us. So the lady who ran it she sent me an email, and then she called me afterwards, and she's like, Jim, this was a really interesting, I wish you had been here to witness it. But basically this Global Tea Championship, they have tea sommeliers that are trained in tasting and cupping tea. And it's a blind taste test. So they just get served cups of tea, and they rate it and grade it and then give awards. And so we had 4 awards that were given to us. And when the judges found out that what they just gave was a medal to an instant tea, it was like pandemonium. Like, what? There's no way this could be an instant tea. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I wish you were there to see that too.
Yeah.
That'd be priceless. Well, on a much smaller scale, I'm doing that for your coffee. Jim was very kind and sent over not only his coffee, instant coffee, but other companies. So I have a little bit of background in coffee. I had my own coffee line with my brother-in-law, and I was a barista back in, a long time ago. So I like coffee quite a bit. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to doing my homemade version of that cupping.
Good.
So yeah, it'll be great. So far, Like I said, I've had 4 of your coffees, and lemon coffee is fantastic too.
Sweet.
But how amazing is that your instant tea beat out some of the other teas, and like in more than once? That's incredible. Yep. It's a testament to how good it is, and I can tell everybody how good it is because I've been drinking it for 3 years. But it is that good.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's probably my biggest challenge as a business, has been getting people to try the product, because once they try it, people get it. But you know, when people hear the term instant, they think it's not going to taste as good.
Right.
And so that it's just a challenge. And then instant tea, when you go to a grocery store, there is no instant tea section. So we get put next to tea bags. And so we're trying to compete with tea bags that are less expensive. And then we're trying to tell people that an instant is going to taste good. So that's, you know, we've struggled. Once we figured out that getting people to try it is the secret to our success, then that's why e-commerce is doing so well. So we have this free sample pack program where people can try our caffeinated teas or our herbal teas or all 12 flavors. They pay a small shipping and handling fee just so that we can get it to them, but the tea is free. And our conversion, we have 35% conversion from when people get the sample pack to place their next order. And, you know,
that's great.
So it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So I've told that statistic to other food brands, and they say that's just phenomenal. Like, nobody sees a 35% conversion. No, we are.
Good for you, Jim. That's well deserved. And, you know, on a little bit of background, I help out a local food company, 4 Points Bar. You know, they're made here as well. Yeah, I love those
Kevin.
bars.
He's amazing.
Kevin and Patrick they're great people. During this whole coronavirus quarantine, I'm sending them workouts to do with their kids at home, and you know, it was cool seeing what they did this morning for their workout. But like what you're doing, just getting people to try the product, and then people were like, "Oh, this is fantastic." And then it's cool seeing your stuff at our King Super down the street, and then seeing their 4 Points bars at the REI and stuff, and then just sampling at events. And you're so good about that. Like last outdoor retailer, I think you're handing out like some peach tea, and you know, keeping us all jacked, and it was delicious. You know.
Yeah,
so,
that's the secret.
It is.
Thank you.
Try, and I think there's for a lot of businesses can take away that too, like a free to fee. You know, like just get the service or product in the people's hands, or see how valuable it is, and then that conversion rate is fantastic. I wish it was that for other businesses, but you know, that's how you earn their value and their trust. Especially
one of the things, you know, for other businesses that might be listening to this too, we found that I was worried about having a shipping and handling fee. I did try the program as completely free, and our conversion rates were not nearly that 35%. And what we ended up figuring out is that there are a lot of freebie hunters out there. No offense to anyone, but there's a lot of people that just like free stuff, and they're not really interested in buying something. So even I recommend having a small fee, a testing fee, that it's basically, it gets somebody to have a small commitment. Once they've had a small commitment, like, hey, I spent $3 on shipping and handling, the chance that they're going to come back and buy it again, we found is a lot higher. So don't be afraid.
That's great advice. That's fantastic advice. I've heard that from a lot of other people as well. For example, in the fitness industry, I literally made my $300 online mountain fitness program free over Christmas and Hanukkah. I gave it away. Yeah. And nobody did anything with it. I charged, you know, a small fee for it, and people jump on it, you know? So
because it's worth something.
It is, right? People, if they get something for free completely, it's almost devalued to them because they don't have any skin in the game. So that's great advice. I'm glad it worked for you. Everybody else I know who does charge something for the transaction always benefits. So it's good to hear it works for you too.
Yeah.
Well, that's really crazy. You know, I've been fortunate to talk to a lot of businesses last several weeks during this whole coronavirus, and seeing how they're pivoting and adapting. And you're the first food product person I've talked to. So it's interesting. I'm really glad you have your e-commerce going so well. Yeah. That's very huge. What other things have you done to pivot during this unique time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say one of the things that it's not all rosy is that I had to lay off a couple staff members just to reduce our expenses for now. So it was a little bit of a perfect storm for us that one of our investors kind of imploded and didn't give us the money that they owed us. And so that combined with a lot of the capital markets are drying up now. So it's not as easy to find angel investors or venture capitalists to help fund the company. So it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago that I said, I have to reduce expenses, hunker down, and get the business to profitability as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like food brands are a bit different than other companies. Like it's a pretty expensive business. It's things that most customers probably don't realize, but I'll give you an example. So we are in Safeway Denver. So they've got 187 stores. In order to get our products in Safeway Denver, I had to give Safeway 2 cases, which is 12 boxes of tea, 2 cases per store per flavor, just to get on their shelves. And so if we have 5 flavors, it's basically I'm giving away 10 cases per store times 187 stores. So it ended up being like almost $40,000 worth of cost for me to just get on the shelf. And, you know, certain food products like potato chips or, you know, ready to drink beverages, they move at a lot higher velocity than tea does. Like on average, tea moves a half unit per store per week. So it's a pretty slow moving product, but when you're in that many stores, it can add up. But that initial cost is huge. And so a lot of food brands, you know, we built in the early days, we're built on investment money so that we can get ourselves on the shelf because it's so expensive to get on the shelf. And then it can take, you know, it'll take 18 months for us to break even on Safeway Denver's business. So I've, you know, as part of the pivot that we've done is that I'm really pulling back on a lot of those free fill situations in grocery stores. And there are some really great grocery chains that don't require that slotting fee, where some of them still do. So we're pivoting away from the accounts that it's going to take a long time to get a return on the investment. And then we're really doubling down on e-commerce. I think that there's so many benefits to e-commerce. With our product in particular, it's very light to ship. So we can ship 1 box profitably to somebody and not charge them an arm and a leg. If you're a kombucha or something, it's just heavy and it's going to cost you a fortune to ship it to people. So we're fortunate with that. And then people are shifting online anyway. And now I think with all this coronavirus, it's just going to magnify. Even once people can go out safely again, I think that the convenience with online shopping will continue. Mm-hmm. And then the other benefit is that we can give the product to the customer at a cheaper price. Another thing that people probably don't realize is that there are multiple middlemen to get it to the grocery store shelves. And so like we don't sell it directly to King Soopers, we sell it to a distributor, and that distributor takes 28 to 30% markup. Then they sell it to King Soopers, and King Soopers takes 40 to 50% markup. So you've got like 70 to 100% markup just to get it to the shelves. Wow. Where I can sell direct to the customer for the exact same price that I sold it to the distributor for and save the customer 100% of the cost.
Wow. That's really cool. Thank you for explaining how that works. I've always wondered, you know, there's companies like True or Go Light back in the day, direct to consumer. Yeah. And that makes a lot more sense. Able to give the customer a better price. It's just getting the name out there and getting in front of people.
That's the hard part, is there's a lot of noise. Like trying to grow a business e-commerce, like when you hear, oh yeah, you can give it to a better price, it sounds like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't everybody do that? But it's been 3 years for us to build up our e-commerce business. And now it's starting to fire on all cylinders, but 3 years is a long time. And you got to pay a lot of money in Facebook and Instagram advertising just to get people to know who you are. So that's the downside, is that you can get it. You can go to 1,000 grocery stores and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 grocery stores that are selling your products and customers that are seeing your products there, versus how long would it take for you to get that same number of eyeballs e-commerce? A long time.
It would. Yeah, that's a very good point. And back to your earlier topic about businesses going online, it's been really cool to see a lot of businesses go online, not just with products, but services too. For example, you know, you train, your gym probably closed down like everything else. I had 3 gyms closed in one day. And I'm like, you know, I had to take a deep breath, you know, meditate on like, all right, this is challenging, but you know what? There's still the customers and the clients and the students that need service. So then you embrace online and you give it to them. And then it's been, for my businesses at least, that first week was really unique. Like, how do we use Zoom? And like, where do you put your laptop for the client, you know? But now it's very enjoyable and actually something I'll probably keep on my services moving forward, because now I can give service to people outside of this metro area. And it's been really helpful. But, you know, for a lot of people, they can't offer the like services like chiropractors and physical therapists we work with directly, like trying to help them shift their businesses too. It's been a unique learning challenge the last few weeks, and there probably will be for several more.
Yeah. Everybody's hurting in different ways right now.
Yeah, that's true.
it's, my wife is a nurse practitioner, and so she's been at the front lines of a lot of this. And so, yeah, it's been really challenging for her. And so she's been able to shift some of her business to just being teleconference and video conference, but some of it is still just requires to be in person. And yeah, it's wild times.
Well, my heart goes out to her and to you this time.
She's
right
amazing.
now.
So it's to her, really.
Well,
but because of her,
please.
I was trying to figure out, like, what can I do as a small business? And we're going through our own financial struggles right now, but what can I do to help support and give back? And so one of the things we did is that for all the tea that we sell, right now I've set it through the end of April, and I'll just keep extending it as long as this crisis goes on. But we're giving 10% of all of our sales back to healthcare workers in the form of free coffee and tea. So people can nominate any healthcare facility, and we'll supply a hospital wing, a hospital floor with free coffee and tea. And a little caffeine can do something, right?
Oh,
I thought that the guys at 4 Points are doing that too. Like, just give bars. Like, it's just something small we can do.
Yeah, good for you, Jim. That's so great, and it's on your website right there. That's very helpful. Yeah, caffeine, very helpful stuff. Oh, goodness. Well, like you said, everybody's feeling this in a way. My wife works in HR, and she's now working from home, and it's kind of fun. We had just built a home office inside our other bedroom in our condo. Is also our home gym, so we take turns using it. So she'll go in there and do our meetings, and then I get to be loud right now doing the podcast, and then she'll have her conference. And so it's been fun working from home. But like you said, they're going through some major stuff. They have to trim back some things, and that's a lot of businesses are doing that. I've talked to people who have buildings that they lease out, how they're trying to handle it. I talked to people who have leases and how they're trying to handle it. And we're all just trying to manage how to move forward with it.
Yeah. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got was, I was feeling really bad about doing layoffs, and I still do. It's hard for me not to take it as a personal failure, but somebody reminded me that we don't do any good if we don't survive. If the company's not around, then nobody gets to keep their jobs. So, I think that the government's response, as far as the payroll protection program that they released, it's like, I hope that it all comes through. Millions of us applied for it all at once. I don't know anybody that's actually gotten the money yet. I hope that it comes through, because that will be really helpful. But we'll see if it happens. It was a bit chaotic, right?
It was. I applied. Oh my gosh. Last Monday I applied. Then I thought I went through, then it didn't. I applied again on Friday. Then it didn't. Then I tried on this Monday. And then I just did it again right before this podcast. And I'm like, okay. Then I did the other one. So I did the payment protection one. I did the other one with the $10,000 bump up front. And
EIDL.
Yep. And I think you and I were both on the SIA webinar today too. And that nice law firm went through and broke it down in good detail. Because it's just me, my business, so I'm pretty easy to work with. But there's a lot of hoops, a lot of chaos, a lot of filing. Hopefully, it all works out. And if it does, that could really help you and me and all the people we serve, and just move forward. So we're not like totally screwed.
Yeah, it'll keep a lot of the small businesses, I think, in business and keep people employed, which is what we want to do. Right now it's already, I don't remember I think it's like 12 or 15 million Americans applied for unemployment. And, we're probably halfway through this. So we're probably going to end up with 20 to 30 million of Americans unemployed. And so I do appreciate the programs, because in theory, even though we've had to reduce staff, but once people can get back to work, if they can keep the businesses in business, then we can rehire people relatively quickly.
Yep. That's a very good point.
Normal.
Back in 2008, I think it was, the law firm I worked at did layoffs, but when they got things back, they hired back at least half the people. Yeah. And, it worked out. And also it was a good reason to get rid of some slackers.
Some dead weight.
Yeah. There's plenty of that in any business, I'm sure. But, I hope it all works out. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people too are still in shell shock. Like people like you and me, I like challenges. I like to problem solve, and I like to talk to people like you and see what you're doing and what can we take away from this conversation and share with others and get people just, growing. There's still people who are still learning, and there's still people who are still in just, defeat. And once they hopefully pull themselves out, they'll start hopefully applying for unemployment or the payroll protection. And those numbers will probably at least double, if not triple.
Yep.
Hopefully they come to that point.
Totally.
Well, totally. Well, so your gym is closed. Is that the Alpine Training Center? Is that where you go?
I do. Yeah. Do you know Connie?
I am so aware of her, but I've never met her in person.
Okay. Yeah. She's amazing. Yeah, I train at the Alpine Training Center here in Boulder. It's kind of, you know, a mixture of CrossFit and mountain athletics. So it's not just straight up CrossFit, although the movements are somewhat similar, but there's a little bit more of an endurance focus and mountain athletics focus, which I kind of like because I'm not looking to get like jacked and big muscles, but I want to be able to have big, long days. And so I started going there 3 years ago when I was building Cusa Tea, and I would say like hats off to her because it has helped keep me sane through so many challenges of a small business, that being able to work out 3 times a week. It's a maximum of 8 students per class. And so, you know, I always go to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. And so you get to know the same athletes that are there. And, you know, she's been doing like at-home classes too during this, which has been great. I would say like, I've heard some people be like, oh yeah, the gym industry is going to die after this because everyone's going to realize that they can pay far less for it and do it from home. I think that's absolutely bogus. No way. Yeah. Like the majority of the reason that I go there is because of the community and people that push you and the coaches that push you to be harder and faster and stronger than you would have been if you were doing it at home on your carpet. There's no way.
I'm glad to hear from you because I'm a little bit biased in this. You know, because I wanted to survive. And you're right. Everybody I've talked to as well, they cannot wait. I mean, it's fun to do the interaction. And fortunately, everybody I train, the first thing I'm like, you got to get a TRX and a couple kettlebells just to have at home, right? Or in your truck. And so most of my students they're good to go, but not everybody was prepared for this. They're all freaking out. I was looking over at Rep Fitness, which is a local fitness company, make great products. They're sold out like everything. All my neighbors like, what am I going to do for my home gym? I'm like, you're too late.
Too late.
Too late, man. We've got to improvise some cinder blocks and pull-up bars here. But we're all doing the best we can. And as a small business owner myself too, like fitness in the mountains, like that's my sanctuary where I go to heal and work through stuff. So like you spend a lot of time in the mountains, and you're a skier, I would assume.
Yep, I am.
Nice,
you know, it's kind of funny when I don't know, it was back in 2010. I was working for Good Belly, the probiotic juice drink, and those are sold in grocery stores. And I had a headhunter reach out to me, and they said, hey, do you have any interest in looking at a position in the outdoor industry? And I said, you know, honestly, that's the industry that seemed like the perfect fit for me because it's a mixture. It has business and sales and marketing like I was looking for, but it's also all the things that I love to do outside. And so then they told me that, well, it's a position with Dynafit. Can you ski? And at that time I was a snowboarder.
Oh, really?
And so when I interviewed for the position, they were like, well, we're actually about to acquire a rock climbing brand. So they acquired Wild Country. And so I'm a big climber. So that was actually a benefit. They were like, well, the fact that you're a climber is fine. We really want somebody that has a lot of technical expertise because all of our sales team, they're more skiers. So they didn't have as much rock climbing experience. But then at the end of the interview, they're like, but you're still going to have to learn to ski. And I was like, all right, like might as well. And so I just got thrown to the wolves. Like literally the first day out on backcountry skis, it was an 18-inch powder day up in Vancouver. And they were supposed to take me to a ski resort and we were just going to go up the trails and then come down. But then we were with one of the major retailers, MEC. And so the buyer at MEC was like, there's no way we're wasting 18 inches of powder to ski down groomed runs. So they like took me backcountry and we went down like a 40-degree tree slope in 18 inches of powder. Wow. It was my first experience.
Truly thrown to the wolves. That's aggro.
And then, anyway, now it's been 10 years and I can pretty much get down anything. It may not look as pretty as some of the guys that grew up skiing, but I've done some expeditions in the Himalayas skiing. We skied Ranier 2 years ago, me and 2 buddies.
Wow.
So that's how I like to spend my time.
Yeah, you're capable for sure. Wow, that's so cool. Have you
been Ranier?
No, I've been out to Glacier, Washington for the Baker Splitport Festival, which been like 2 weeks ago, but obviously didn't happen. I've only seen Shuxin, which is really majestic mountain. It's so pretty. That whole maritime snowpack too. It's so much different than we have here at the continental snowpack, right? Like we have beautiful snow, really dangerous snow.
Yeah, really dangerous. But it can get deep and fluffy and stay that way for weeks at a time. Where out there, it's like cement. Like
so heavy.
It snows 18 inches, but you're still only skiing on 3 inches of powder or soft snow because everything else just consolidates down.
Yeah, we do have a good eye here. And you're in the group too, right? The backcountry ski and
Yep.
snowboard group. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. I was asked to join that back when we had like 600 people, I think. And now we're
Okay.
just shy of 8,000 people.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. Luckily, there's 5 of us total moderating it, and admitting. Had to kick some people out. People get surly, especially the last 3 weeks being up home too drunk and too much keyboard warrior stuff, but
Yeah.
tends to happen. But fortunately, there's been a lot of great people in the community to meet up and link up and find new zones. Like I have my zones I go to. I'm sure you do too.
Of course.
Yeah,
I won't tell anybody where they are though.
Ditto. No, mine are pretty easy. But it's nice to like meet new people and get turns in and have some tea and share some crazy food in the mountains. And we do have a very good out here in the sunshine. We're very fortunate out here.
I know it's killing me right now. I mean, I want to be there. I am responsible. Like
Good.
my spring skiing, it's my favorite time to go. No, hands down, because there's so many lines that are just, they're not safe. And so, I'm 40 years old. I don't have a death wish. I was pretty crazy when I was younger, and now I would prefer to ski lines that are safe. And so I'm not going to ski some of these lines in the middle of winter. But then all of a sudden in April, it's like everything solidifies, and it's like perfect time to ski these steeper lines. And so it's killing me not to be out there now, but it's the right move.
I'm glad to hear that, Jim. We're going back and forth in our group about that too. How do we address this, proactively? And we all took the stance that, just please stay home, stay in your county. Don't put people like your wife at risk,
Exactly.
Just be responsible. And it was pretty well received, actually. Friends of Bertha Pass reshared it, and then Nine News reshared it. And so people, by and large, I think are doing the right thing. And I hear you. I've got freaking 5 split boards right there on the wall, just waiting to be used maybe in June. I don't know. But if not, that's totally fine. I'm missing the mountains a lot myself. I'm up there, fortunately, twice a week with my dogs, camping and testing gear, drinking your tea, drinking vodka at night, and having a great time, So I feel you, but it makes me appreciate what we do have when we get to go back and do it for sure.
Yeah.
So it'll come around.
It will come around. People, it's always funny, like all these hardcore skiers that are like, they're going out in October and November, and the snowpack is awful and you're hitting rocks every turn.
Yeah.
And like, where are all you crazy skiers or you so-called like backcountry enthusiasts in June, July, and August, when there's still a lot of fun lines to ski and they're all stable and safe. Yeah. So I highly doubt that this is going to go that long. And so hopefully not, knock on wood, but yeah, I mean, I've already got some missions planned with friends in July and August if we can do them.
Oh, cool. I'll be very curious about that. I know where I'm going in June. My favorite place, I'll go on the record, Coon Hill. I just love going up there.
It's awesome.
It's a great place.
Coon's great.
It's so pretty. It's so majestic. And I go there when I need a new business because they have cell phone service. I actually refinanced our condo up there 2 years ago on the mountain.
Well done.
Thank you. I'm trying to multitask here.
Dude, I love the north side of Coon Hill. Like there's so many of those chutes that go down to the basin that are, short but fun.
Right. Oh, they're so much fun. Well, so I'll hopefully get up there with you in June and July. Have some fun up there.
Have you skied the Northwest Couloir on Radio Beacon Hill?
Not yet. No.
That one is awesome. It's like starts out at like 50 degrees and then goes through a little choke, like one turn choke. You kind of just have to point it and go. And then it opens up again. So that's a really fun one.
Cool. I get made fun of a lot because I keep going to the same spots. I do like mild runs, but I do like getting after it. So yeah, I'll keep that on the radar. That's a good one. Let's do it, Jim. Well, I've learned a lot sharing the stuff with you, and hopefully the listeners have too, and I know they have. And not just with tea and coffee, but how a small business is adapting, what you're doing, how it's actionable for our listeners. And there's a lot to take away from this conversation, and I appreciate your time. I think for being honest and open about how the background works and stuff. It's very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And for your listeners, there's been so much on social media about supporting local companies and buying gift cards and buying takeout food. And, that I think in buying from small businesses online, and those really are the lifeblood for us right now. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of people that lost their jobs and they're losing some of their spending power as well. But there's a lot of people that are still in work and they're at home. And I just want to say that to listeners, like it really matters when people do that for us. And it's been keeping us alive. And then when we come back, it'll be even better. Like we'll be able to grow and rehire and continue that growth, but we can't do anything if people don't support us during this time.
Well said. And I'm going to have links to Kusa Tea on the podcast as well.
Thank you.
And and I'm not just like saying this because you're on the show, but I really do love your product, and I drink it all the time, and I always hand it out. It's really good stuff. So listeners, trust me, it's really good. It won't go wrong.
Thanks, Sean. I can't wait to hear the coffee results, though. That's the one.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna have to probably carry over until tomorrow to finish all the coffee, because I think there's like 5 or 6 different flavors, and then a lot of coffee.
Yeah, we have 5 flavors. I did that because people have so many different flavor profiles, and I've noticed that's really different than tea drinkers. Tea drinkers, like English breakfast is pretty much English breakfast, and you don't have as many variations. In coffee, there's just like, some people like light and nutty and flavorful, and some people like it like motor oil. And so I think that was the hardest thing for me, is trying to figure out, okay, at first I was just going to launch 1 or 2 types, and then I would give it out to people. We had a light and a medium roast, and I would give it to people, and half the responses were, this is taste amazing, and the other half was like, well, I want something that puts hair on my chest. And you're like, okay. So then we have to come out with some other like dark roast products, but that is different than most other instant coffee companies. They usually just have one type. So for us, we've got 5 different ones. So I can't wait to hear what your favorite one is, and then how we stack up against all the other products in the market.
I'm excited too, because you got some good competition you sent me over. Good ones, like legit, so it's gonna be really fun to find out. So I'll have those results up probably by this weekend. Well, Jim, thank you very much for
Sean.
what you do, and give my love to your wife for her hard work during this crazy time.
I will. Thanks
Awesome,
for all you do, man.
I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.